Welcome and welcome back to those of you that are joining us for one of your second or third sessions of Real Estate Live this week. Real Estate Live, if you are just joining us, is a week of online free events designed to keep the property and regeneration sectors talking, and it's being brought to you by White Label and our partners. This session is being brought to you in partnership with Aldgate BID and is about creating a destination in Aldgate. So we've got a fantastic panel and I hope everyone's looking forward to hearing the debate unfold. We're hoping that you're not just going to be hearing from our speakers this morning, but also from each other. And we're trying to encourage as much audience participation as possible this week. So to kickstart that, we're going to launch a quick poll. And the poll is going to be asking you, and it's going to launch now, what will the most important factor in kickstarting development and recovering the strength of UK real estate be post-COVID-19? So there's quite a few options there. I'll give you a couple of minutes to fill in your answers, and we'll be collating those at the end of the week. Also during this session, we'd like you to participate still further by putting your questions to our panel. You can do that using the Q&A feature in the Zoom toolbar. Please use the Q&A as opposed to the chat. If you want to just make a general comment or have a thought about what we're talking about, then put that in the chat. But if you've got a question for the panel, our chair, Catherine, who's a director at White Label, will be using the Q&A feature. So all of the questions in there, please. So I'm going to end the polling now, and I'm going to hand over to Catherine to start the debate. Enjoy.
Thanks very much. And just to add my welcome to everyone who is watching this afternoon. We've been all around the country this week, and I'm delighted, having been literally from Scotland to Wales and all round, to find myself back in London for this session, and most importantly back in Aldgate. A destination that many will pass through, many will maybe live and work there. It's a very diverse community. It has a lot of history, it has a lot of heritage, it has a lot of opportunity. And what we're going to be doing in the next hour is really trying to understand more what the impact of COVID-19 may be having and what the plans are for the future for Aldgate. And we've got a great lineup of people to help us with that today. So I'll just briefly introduce them to you. We have Ian McCallaghy from mainly Gensler. So Ian is from Gensler. Gensler employ around 250 people in Aldgate. But also today he's here with his chair of the newly formed Business Improvement District hat on, and we'll be asking him about that in a few more moments. Also with us this afternoon we have Dan Jones from the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, and also from the City of London, Helen Kearney. Now Aldgate is unique. It is split down the middle, literally across two boroughs. So it's great that we've got both local authorities here today to talk about that and how collaborative working, I'm sure, across the public sector, across those local authorities, but also working in conjunction with the private sector, I'm sure, is a very important part of Aldgate. Also with us is Ed Labroni. Now Ed is from the Chamberlain Hotel. We all know that the hospitality and leisure sector has been, truly hit and will continue to suffer probably for the foreseeable future as hotels and restaurants cope with coming out of COVID-19. And it's great to hear from Ed this afternoon, because we know Aldgate is a big leisure destination, has a number of large hotels. How is that sector going to cope moving forward? Also with us this morning, I keep saying this morning, but it is actually the afternoon, we've got Jim Minton. Now Jim is from Toynbee Hall, a great resource, a great facility that Aldgate has, full of history and heritage, a great arts place, a great venue. And Jim will be talking more about that. And with him today is also Deborah Chadbourne. And Deborah Chadbourne is based in Toynbee Hall. She's both an occupier and a landlord, because Deborah is from a company that actually helps the arts and brings together the arts, as well as gives out space to the arts. So we'll be talking about that very important part of the place of Aldgate. And then finally, Catherine McCulloch is with us, and Catherine is an investor, she's a developer, and she's also a landlord, and her company is, just lost it on my notes, her company is Merchant Land. So apologies that I've forgotten that momentarily. Lots of faces in front of me this afternoon. But Catherine will be talking to us about that and what that means to merchant land, why they chose Aldgate in the first place, why they're still committed, why they think it's a great place to invest, and what COVID-19 is going to do to their business moving forward. So that's who we have today. There's lots of people here, and I'm sure lots of questions that you've got for them. Oh, and we can now see Helen, which is wonderful. She's managed the technology, and we now have you in view. That's great. Dan Jones from Tower Hamlets is unfortunately having trouble with his video, but he is here. He can see us. We can't see him, but we'll be able to talk to him a little bit later. So first of all, I want to come over to Ian. And Ian, perhaps you can just talk to us about the Business Improvement District, what it means to have got that yes vote at a difficult time, admittedly, given COVID-19, but talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Catherine. And after your epic tour of the country, what a great place to land in Aldgate. It's probably one of the best places in London, I think. What an incredible time we've all lived in. We in Aldgate have been running a business partnership for quite a few years, actually, and finally took the decision to convert into a business improvement district, and successfully just completed our ballot earlier this year. Literally just before we all went into lockdown, and we had a shiny manifesto that we were going to deliver, tons of enthusiasm from stakeholders and businesses in the area. We were all ready to go, and then the slightly unexpected global pandemic eclipsed us all. So yeah, it's been a pretty strange time, but we've used this time as a partnership to kind of regroup. There's a lot of organization we need to do to get the bid up and running anyway, so we're using that time and selecting our board and getting all our administration in order. But I think the other thing we've been doing is looking at what seemed like a very sensible, rational manifesto only a few weeks ago, and really just taking a look at that and thinking, well, actually the world has changed. Do we need to change our priorities? Actually, I think our priorities haven't changed that much, but it's the emphasis and order perhaps that we need to really think about. But I think that the few messages that I really think come out in the conversations we've been having as businesses in the area is the world of work is really shifting. But also the world we live in is really shifting. And actually, here we all are, or most of us, sitting from home. Actually, the two have collided into one place. But I think what that's revealed to us is the importance and value of community. And I think that sense that we've tended to have a work community and we've tended to have a home community. And actually, now there's an opportunity to somehow join the dots on this. I think that sense of that we're all seeing in our home community, actually, I can work in this place and I can live in this place and I can know my neighbours and the local shopkeeper and the local healthcare worker. But that sense that London, one of its great resilience points is it is a polycentric city. It is a city of small towns and small villages. And I think we've all always valued that, but I think we're really seeing the value of that now. That polycentric nature of London and the power of community in each of those little clusters is so important to us all. And I don't think we're going to want to give that up. Aldgate, in my view, is very special because it's a slightly it's a part of the city in transition, very stark transition, a huge amount of investment going in new buildings, new residential, new offices, but I think it's also a place that really has elements of all the things we expect in the polycentric city. All those elements are what make up a sustainable village. It has a high street, it has a market, it has a primary school, it has a church, it has charities, and it also has giant businesses and thousands of new residents. The problem is, it's not all quite joined together. It hasn't all quite melded together. We have two local authorities. And we're trying as a partnership to bring both authorities together, all the businesses together, and all these key parts of our community together. And I think we will emerge from this with a very positive outlook about saying, actually, I think we do have the makings of the perfect polycentric city in Aldgate. We've just got to join them all back together again. And that's what the partnership's trying to do.
That sounds great. I mean, I think you are in quite a very unique position, really, because you do have that wide and varied community, which you don't see in many other London boroughs to the extent you see it in Aldgate. And also, from your bid's perspective, you've got a very high levy in that your bid, I believe, is very much aimed at the higher end corporates. And yet that is a resource that's there, but I'm sure as a bid you're looking to also be supportive to the wider business community, so that's everyone from market stalls to SMEs up. Is that how you're seeing it working?
Yeah, that is the attraction of Aldgate, that I can be close to one of the most important business clusters in the world in the core of the City of London, but actually also have a high street market at Portobello Road on the other. I can have access to St Botolph's Church and the only primary school in the City of London, and a new town square, the only part of London to have a new town square. So yeah, I think it's this weird juxtaposition of all these things that make Aldgate very special. Not dissimilar actually to a lot of the city fringe that has has elements of that all the way around the city. And I think that's what attracts businesses to the area, and some very big businesses about to move into the area. And I think that's real testament to that.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to come to Dan now, and also sort of in parallel to Helen as well. And I know we've got a presentation, Dan, that you want to share, which I think is going to be really helpful to talk to us about, what is Aldgate, what's it made up of, what is its history. So over to you, Dan. Talk to us a little bit more about the local authorities' approach and what's actually going on in Aldgate, and then we'll come to Helen.
Thank you very much. Yes, so Tower Hamlets has been working with the Aldgate Partnership now, and more recently with the City of London, for about 3 years. And the Aldgate bid, obviously going live from the 1st of April, means we'll be very much working closely with them all in terms of how we can really revitalise and regenerate this area, which, as you say, is rather unique in that it falls across the 2 different boroughs. Just a bit of background, Tower Hamlets has 4 regeneration areas in the borough, and this one comes under what we call the city fringe area. And if you could just put the next slide up, please. Is that come up? I can't quite see. Yes, there it is. Thank you. Okay. So the orange bit is our city fringe area, which is obviously on the borders with the city and Hackney. And if you'll see in the purple area, that's what we're calling the Aldgate bid area. And it's important to understand a bit more about the wider context of the Aldgate area, just to understand where we got to this point. So if you see just to the right, we've got the Whitechapel area, where we've seen a significant bit of public sector investment in that area with Whitechapel Cross Rail Station, the new town hall, which is going into there for Tower Hamlets, and a world-class life science research hub with Bart Hospital and London Met University. So there's a lot of public investments going to that area, which we hope will then enable the Aldgate area with the strong sort of economic business growth with private developers, landowners investing in that area with new office and retail development to really create a fantastic regeneration opportunity in the East End of London. And we're seeing sort of 3,500 new homes going in by 2025, 3,300 new hotel rooms, some nearly 3,000 student accommodation spaces, and lots of new public spaces and open spaces in this area. And what we found is that, so you'll see a bit of the 3D space there of some different buildings and infrastructure that's going in. But we've seen that investors of the commercial space in Aldgate over the past 6 years say the proximity to that Crossrail development in Whitechapel was a key reason behind their decision to move there, whilst residential and hotel development refer to the East End vibe, the diverse communities which has been touched on before, and the dynamic character of the area as a reason to come to that Aldgate area. So we've got some different reasons why people are moving in, and just some of those buildings in that key you'll see there. So the blue ones are completed buildings, and the yellow ones are at planning stage or not yet completed. You've got the Aldgate Tower, 16 office story block by Aldgate Station, with tenants including Acom, Uber, China Life, WeWork, Mask, etc. And you've got Aldgate Place with some 460 studios across 6 buildings. And then the Whitechapel building completed in 2016 with sort of 8 stories of contemporary office space. And the BT have chosen to come to Aldgate over Canary Wharf, which is also in Hamlets, due to the character of the area, which is fantastic. So lots of different people come into the area, and we hope we have a vision for the area along with City and TAP of how it can be a revitalised, fantastic cultural area. I think slide next one, please. Oh, that's it, yeah. So one of the key challenges from this area is we've got a significant number of population living, working, visiting the area, and it's a very densely populated area, and we have a significant challenge about how we manage the public realm. And we are committed in Tower Hamlets, I think, along with the city, to actually invest in how we manage the public realm, invest more into taking care of it, because without all the investment that goes in there for the buildings and the retail and the businesses and the residents there, it's important that we get this right. And I think it's fair to say that we haven't really reacted to the 24/7 economy as we perhaps should have done over the last few years, but we're committed to getting that right now. And using the money from the bid, we've agreed jointly with the TAP and the partnership to actually invest back into that area, and we're looking to improve waste collection, waste management solutions in that area, as well as looking at how we improve the shared use of the highway for pedestrians and cyclists and other modes of transport, not just cars, which I think is, we all know there's a big challenge around that in terms of London and other cities, especially with COVID and how we segregate people for the 2 metre rule, which is real challenges for us at the moment.
Dan, can I just interrupt you momentarily? Just do need you to move on quite quickly.
Yep, no problem.
I know you've got a few slides, but
I'm coming to the end now. It's fine.
That's great.
Sorry. Okay. Significant capacity issues at Aldgate and some crowding there, which is obviously not what we want to see in this time. And the next slide is just the final one. And obviously, there's a really important thing about how we bring the community together and how we build upon what we've already created there to celebrate the local heritage and culture. And as Helen will say, you know, we as boroughs are committed to how we do this together with the businesses, local community, and the investors. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So just bringing Helen in now then to pick up on this presentation. Trying to unmute you, Helen. Yep, lovely.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Helen Carney, and I work for the City of London Corporation in the public realm team there, and lead on this project, which, as we've already described, is a joint project between City and Tower Hamlets. And it's really been a fantastic experience so far, and seeing the 2 boroughs work together has been quite something. I think a lot of people in the local area do comment on that, actually. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thanks. This is actually just similar to what you saw just then, but it's the Aldgate Square project. So the reason why this image is in here, I'm sure we all know it, but it's an example of the type of projects that our team work on. So for those of you who don't know it, this area used to be a traffic gyratory, so it used to be a sort of roundabout. And we took away the roads from that area and created a new public space, much kind of used local community public space with a social community-run cafe, the church on one side, and then the primary school on the other side. Next slide. So after we've outlined the kind of reason why we're working together, I think I'd like to talk a bit more about the specifics of the Petticoat Lane project itself. Now, again, some of you may know about Petticoat Lane Market. It was a historic market. It's been running for kind of 400 years. It's one of London's oldest street markets, and it was always famous for fabrics and clothing, and people from all over the country would go there. I'm from Manchester, but my parents went there to go and get their first leather jackets. You know, it was always a sort of famous place to go. But unfortunately, in the kind of last 15-20 years, it's declined, and it's declined for many reasons. A lot of markets around the country have done, obviously, but it's also been hit by congestion charges and changes in customs duties and all sorts of things that mean and the internet and, you know, internet shopping, all sorts of things like that. And over the last few years, I think both the city and Tower Hamlets realised that they really needed to support this local market because of how important it was to the local area, and made the commitment to do that. So there's now an investment into improving the market and the area in which the market is situated. So this image is actually Middlesex Street, which is where the market is located on a Sunday. It's here, it's at the junction between Middlesex Street and Wentworth Street. The boundary between the two local authorities runs right down the middle of this street. So the market really crosses the boundary. So this is why it's so important that we work together. The project itself looks at improvements to the market, so better stalls, better facilities for the traders, a better mix of products that serves the local area much better than currently. It's also a big public realm project, so you can see here the kind of state of the road and the fact that the space is dominated by the road, and that it's got this kind of real grey concrete feel to it, and it doesn't have facilities for the market. It doesn't have power, and doesn't have water facilities. So we're really looking at that as part of this, and we're also looking at increasing the kind of advertising, publicity, events, brand, like everything about how do you attract people into the market as well. So this is the current situation of the market. If you go to the next slide, we can see a visualization for how it might look after the public realm project's finished. So here you can see things like the street surfacing, much improved. There's much more space for people rather than the road dominating the space. There's street art, there's seating for people who come to the market. There's more greenery, there's more space for stalls, and more flexibility. So this can be used as an event space for local people. It can be used for seasonal market events, perhaps at Christmas or at special occasions and so on. And just to wrap up, I thought I'd if you go to the next slide. I just wanted to touch really quickly on this point that's been raised a number of times about the fact that this is a big joint project, not just with City Tower Hamlets and the Aldgate project, the Aldgate partnership, sorry, but also with many, many local people in the area. So we've done all sorts of community outreach. We have very regular sessions with local people where they give us their input into the what they want to see from the project, and even to the extent of saying what type of stalls that they'd like there, because there's no grocery stalls at the minute, for example, so they can't go and do their grocery shopping there. And we've got a website that has lots of polling that's very user friendly that people have been using. We do community crafts events where people can make bunting that then actually goes on the stalls or goes on the entrance to the street. And we do an oral history project as well around the memories of the market, because obviously for something like Petticoat Lane, which has got such a lot of history, everybody in the local area has these amazing stories and ideas and kind of memories about the market, and so we're trying to incorporate those into the projects as well. Right. I think that's it for me, so thanks a lot, and yeah, I'd just like to say, come on down in the next couple of years and you'll see some changes, hopefully.
That's great. Thank you for that comprehensive update. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we did one of our webinars was about the future of the high street, and actually how people are all choosing to go back to their local high street at this current time, and actually how places like marketplaces could well come back into their own and can thrive. So actually the fact that there is regeneration going on around Petticoat Lane and that whole market, I guess timing wise, COVID-19 may well have sort of been a good thing in terms of maybe encouraging people back to that sort of local shopping experience again. I imagine it may well have stalled you slightly in terms of being able to move forward, perhaps at the pace that you might want to do. But that's great. And as you say, I think Petticoat Lane is such a well-known place. Not everyone would have realised that it was in Aldgate. So I think that's really helpful. I'm going to come to Catherine because Catherine, your company, Merchant Land, chose Aldgate back in the 80s. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a bit about the future for you with Aldgate in the light of COVID-19.
Yeah, okay. So Merchant Land is part of a group of businesses that have been operating from Leman Street in Aldgate since the early 1980s, when our founders came over from Kenya to launch a startup commodity trading business, and chose Leman Street because at the time it was cheap. It was on the city fringes, close to the financial district, and also was culturally diverse and a welcoming place for immigrants to come and settle and start a business. 30 years later, the company that I run, that's a subsidiary of that original company, continues to operate from Leman Street. But I think more importantly, we continue to invest heavily in new acquisitions, pipeline developments and projects in the local area, because we really believe in it as a sort of strong place to put our money. It's got really strong fundamentals to want to develop and hold and be landlords on projects here. So at the moment, as well as looking for new sites, we've got a 100,000 square foot office and retail scheme in planning, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we get it. And if so, we'll be investing really quite a lot to deliver that project in the next few years, and to start drumming up and putting in what will be about 40 million into an area. You need to believe that the fundamentals are there. Yeah. Interestingly, the fundamentals that we see, are quite a lot of them are similar to why we were attracted to Aldgate in the 1980s to start off with. It still is comparatively cheap, particularly as an office destination. If you compare it to your choices, maybe over in Shoreditch, maybe into sort of city core, Aldgate has good value. The location hasn't changed. We're still sitting on the edge of the city centre, of the financial district, walking distance, but retaining that kind of vibrant community feel. It really does have its own feel still, which attracts visitors, attracts new residents and new office occupiers. People want to give their employees vibrancy and creativity, and Aldgate has that in abundance. And it also still is, we feel, genuinely diverse and inclusive. Different people can feel at home in different parts walking around it. There has been a lot of gentrification, but it's not become homogenous, which gives it that kind of vibrancy that people like to be part of. A few other things just from a cold investment point of view, when you're putting cases to banks, when you're putting cases to boards to get funding, things like the transport network, the connectivity, that's important, and it's been strong to date. And then the new kind of food and beverage, retail, hospitality offerings that have come through, they are important because they attract visitors, they make it an attractive destination for new businesses to come to and help retain existing ones. And that's the important thing. We believe it's a destination that will retain businesses, retain residents and attract new ones. And it's that kind of nice combination that we really buy into. I think since COVID, there are things that are going to need help. Connectivity and transport is, like everywhere in central London, is going to be a problem, and I think it needs worked out and sorted out by the different stakeholders, and we're going to have to be able to find ways to support the hospitality, food and beverage kind of sectors. And they are really, really important. They add to the vibrancy, the nightlife, attracting visitors, attracting new businesses, and they're going to have challenges and will need help. And it's so important for Aldgate that they get that help. But, COVID recovery, which is so important, but putting that to one side, because I think we can recover midterm. Long term, we do believe it's got lots of fundamentals, really, really attractive from an investment and development perspective. Hence, we're still here.
Right, that's wonderful. Thank you. I just want to pop back to Ian just for a very quick answer to a question that's come in, because it sort of relates a bit to what Catherine's saying around the community and the fact that, as a bid, we mentioned earlier that you're basically a bid made up of all the large corporates. You've got this mix with the small SMEs, but the point that's being made is, how can you clarify the residents, new and old, will be heard within the operation of a bid. Residents, getting somewhere like Aldgate where you're working so closely with residents, is that something you're going to be taking on board, Ian, from a bid?
Absolutely, and I actually, for many of us with businesses in the area, I think that was one of the driving forces of setting up the business partnership in the first place, which was the precursor of the bid, was that actually businesses operating in the area did want to be involved in the community, did want to be able to engage with local residents, but didn't really have any way to connect with them. So again, it's this sense of separation between your working world and the community. And I think what we've seen from businesses over many years now, actually the people working in them do want to be part, do want to feel part of the community that they work in. And they've tried many different outlets through I know from our own business, kind of reading in local schools and helping out at the church and all sorts of different initiatives. But I do think the BID gives a way of bringing these two different worlds together and trying to form connections between the two. And hence we're very reliant on our key stakeholders like the local church and like Toynbee Hall and the Whitechapel Gallery, who are part of our board, and they help us to create that connectivity. Just touching on the market as well, I think the market has been one of our biggest ambitions as a partnership. The market was the largest street market in Europe in the 1950s, and now is down to a few stallholders. And I think the renaissance of that would be a huge achievement for the local authorities and the partnership. And I think it can be done. And I think you pointed out yourself, I think markets are back in vogue. And that's an amazing way for the local residents, the local community, and the people who are coming into the area, new residents and new businesses, to actually interact in a very sort of human, genuine way.
Yeah, and indeed, sewing's back in fashion.
Exactly. Even I'm sewing.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that, Ian. I'm going to come over to Ed now. Now, Ed, you are from the Chamberlain Hotel, and we know Aldgate has many hospitality and leisure venues. And I know you said earlier that you are preparing to open, which is fantastic news, I'm sure, for everyone who lives and is currently working in Aldgate. But what does that really mean to you, and how easy is that going to be?
Well, easy is a word that is no longer in my vocabulary. As I was saying earlier, we were today working on the new risk assessment to be able to open safe for both our staff and our guests and customers. The current 2-meter social distancing guidance is almost impossible to impose. For those who knows our trading spaces here at the Chamberlain, we have a big, large area that we thought it was going to be easy to accommodate the 2 meters. But it turns out is completely counterproductive to what we try to deliver in terms of service, atmosphere, and a good place to have and enjoy a good time. The industry in general is trying to work together with the government to reduce the social distancing to 1 meter, which is, I understand, the World Health Organization guidance at the moment. In Europe, in the continent, most countries who have opened the bars and restaurants are working with 1 meter. And I think it's Germany that just opened with 1.5 meters. And that alone will make a huge difference. I can imagine some of my colleagues and competitors in the area with completely different layouts. They will probably be put out of business if they were to open with a 2-meter distancing, because of the layout of the venues and everything will make it impossible to trade in that respect. But if we want to continue to attract customers into the area, if we want to attract tourists as with all the local attractions that we have and everything, we need to make sure that when we open, we can do it as safe as possible for everybody. Both for my biggest concern is my team and obviously my customers. And obviously it has to be economical, viable. I think that what we're doing today and the BID itself is a great step forward. I think that the BID comes at precisely, it could not be timed better because the new normal will be something that we will have to build together. Seeing 2 local authorities working together with residents, local businesses and everything, I think it put us in a position of advantage. I think that there is a lot of work ahead of us, but I think that we have the right people, and I think that we are walking in the right direction. And I think that if we can demonstrate that to the general public, this area will go back to what it was before we started to close down and everybody went to work from home. And I cannot wait for everybody to come back to the area.
So back in the old days, back in February, What would the sort of makeup have been of your occupancy of the hotel? I mean, presumably tourists, businesses. What is it that was attracting Aldgate?
It's a Monday to Thursday is a corporate business mainly, with all the people coming to work and have meetings in the city, and from Friday till Sunday is tourist based, especially with tourists coming from Europe, which I don't think that we're going to have for quite some time. But at the same time, a lot of people from these countries are not going to go abroad on holiday. So this is going to be the year of the staycation.
Yeah. So summer holidays in Aldgate. That's what we're all gonna aim for.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point to have a tour around London, and if you think about it, you're not that far away. You can do a lot from here on bicycle, on foot, and there is a lot on Aldgate already to spend a good time without getting bored.
Yeah. Now I have a relative that had to come up from the West Country this week for health appointment, but actually commented that he had an amazing day in London. Never before had it been, such an experience, because, obviously you're able to get around so much more easily, and the place looks magnificent. I know that's not great because it's empty, and that's not good for the economy. But as a tourist destination, we can still be saying, come to London. It's worth looking at. I'm going to come over now to Jim from Toynbee Hall, because Jim, alongside hospitality and leisure, Aldgate does have a great creative arts sector, and you're a big part of that, and you've been around. Toynbee Hall's been around for a long time, so just talk to us a little bit about that, and also about the importance of community, because I know that's a big part of Toynbee Hall.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for giving me the chance to join you all. And just for those of you who don't know, I think Bonnie's going to try and help me get a picture up so anyone who hasn't seen Toynbee Hall can see it. But basically, we're a community organisation and space that's been in the neighbourhood for like 130 plus years. We're a place where we offer support and a welcoming, positive space for the whole community. To kind of make change. We provide free debt and legal advice, English language courses, social action for young people, community research and campaigns, older people services, children's service, lots of different things all going on in one space in the area, all led by local people. And I think if you talk to anyone who's lived in the neighbourhood for any amount of time, they'll all have some kind of connection or memory with Toynbee Hall, which means that we are, we always want to do better and be better connected with the community and those around us, but we are a part of the kind of infrastructure in the area, and it's really nice to be part of a kind of such a vibrant and changing space. You kind of might wonder what we're doing here in a kind of conversation about development, things like that. Well, we spent the last 5 years, as you might have seen from that picture, renewing our spaces to try and create what a kind of socially purposed model of what good development can look like in a very tight corner of London where lots of things are going on. So we've restored a heritage building, we've created a public open space which shows the history of social action in the area, we've created a new community centre for local people, a new advice centre, 4 floors of office space for people to run events, and all around us, we've got a fantastic arts organisation, which Deborah's going to talk about in a few minutes. We've got a school next door, there's a youth club around the corner, there's public housing and there's private housing, and in the middle of it all is a new community garden offering green space for everyone. So it's really been an amazing journey for a charity like us, and we've had lots of support from lots of people in the local area to do it. And of course, we got to March this year, we're just about to unveil the final piece, which was the garden. And then, of course, the first thing you do with all this thing you think about opening up is to close it up. And so over the last couple of months, we've had an incredible challenge, as everyone has. But, the community around us has been amongst the most deeply affected in the country, both by the virus itself, but also by the lockdown. So people are anxious, people are ill, people are out of work suddenly, people have no income, people don't know where to turn. So it's been really important for us as an organisation to be there. We've adapted all our services, we've gone online, we've gone remotely, we've done much more outreach to connect with people, to ensure that we still are there for people, because once this is over, and hopefully it is beginning to to get to where we can look to the future, it'll be so important that organisations like Toynbee Hall are still part of the fabric of these communities. A number of the speakers have talked about the power of the community, and I think it's not just us, there's lots of organisations within the area that are really important for local people. And so that would be my kind of plea to all of us, that as we continue to develop the area and make it a really exciting, vibrant, great place, that we do that for and with everybody else who's in the community. Let them have a say, let them shape it. We can help with that, other people can help with that. It'll be a better place if people in the local community really feel they've got ownership of it. And I think there's some parts of London haven't done that as well as they can do, and I think I'm really encouraged by what I'm hearing. I think we can really do that in our area and make it a place where everyone can enjoy a fairer and a happier future in London. Thank you.
That sounds great. Deborah, coming to you, arts admin. You are a landlord, you are also a business trying to operate. Currently at the moment, hugely challenging, as with Jim, you're based in Toynbee. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in your world at the moment.
So Arts Admin, that I'm the executive director of, has been going for 40 years. We haven't been based in Aldgate for all of that time, and I'll come on to that in a minute. So really what I'm going to talk about is what we do as an organisation, what we currently contribute, and then sort of woven into that, the different concerns that we have about how we get our business going again, but also the things that we would love to see as part of the redevelopment of the area. So as I say, for 40 years, we've been producing new work by extraordinary artists for global stages, often actually as part of regeneration projects. We opened Hull City of Culture with a project in 2017 that brought 30,000 people into the city centre. We support the development of artists' skills and their practices, and we have a growing focus, and I think this is also really important to be mindful of, on supporting younger artists of colour. We produce participation and learning projects locally. We've been involved in some fantastic, wonderful local initiatives like the Lantern Festival that happens every year, and are beginning to get involved in the Petticoat Lane, particularly the ladies' market with local traders. That's really important for us, that we can connect our artists with local businesses, local residents, and other kind of stakeholders in the local community. We've been lucky enough to lease Toynbee Studios, which is this kind of wonderful, characterful building next to Toynbee Hall that's been developed over different decades, 30s, 50s, 70s. And we've been there since 1995, and in 2007 undertook a major redevelopment of that building. So now we can rent out 6 really gorgeous kind of studio spaces, including a rooftop dance studio, and a very beautiful 30s Art Deco theatre, which gets used for all sorts of things. Also has a place in the local community's history. We, in the open house, which is a great initiative that you all know about and was really successful for us and Toynbee Hall last year, we had some wonderful local stories about local residences using under the stage in the theatre as their air raid shelter locally. So this is a building that has really kind of been in people's hearts for a long time. We bring national companies to the building. We bring the Royal Shakespeare Company, we bring English National Touring, Bath Theatre Royal, Sheffield Theatres, Secret Cinema, and they rehearse work and they then go on and present it in the West End and all over the place. We also present work in our space, and that can be artists who are working as part of Chinese Arts Now Festival, or Swiss artists coming in to show their work, or some more radical and boundary changing organisations presenting work by LGBTQI+ artists. So we have a very eclectic kind of community, different communities using our space. We also rent out about 20 office spaces to a creative cluster of really groundbreaking and amazing creative organisations, including the London International Festival of Theatre, Artichoke, Michael Clark Dance Company, Artist Newsletter. And we have a friendly and affordable, and I noticed that's one of the things that's come up on the chat in the Q&A, a cafe where the teas and coffees and cakes are really affordable there. It's obviously not open at the moment, and one of our challenges will be how to, again, as Ed was saying, will be how to get that open again. And we're going to have a lot of thinking to do around that, as well as around how the rest of our spaces operate with reduced capacity. But we're doing all of that thinking at the moment, and as a creative organisation, we'll be extremely creative in finding solutions to those problems. Over 36,000 people use our buildings, our studios annually. We have a lot of footfall, and the people who hire our spaces come back again and again. They like the area. They like the fact that the area is, as Catherine was saying, not sort of homogenised. They like the market, they like the street food, and they like the fact that they can get here pretty easily. Two things to say about our building as well, which are really important. Accessibility and environmental sustainability, and neither of those things are going away either currently or in the wake of COVID-19. We've currently got our second tranche of quite significant funding to do some more work around making our building over and above accessible in terms of accessible standards. And we know that this is both a sort of a social obligation. We subscribe to the social model of disability, which is where it's not the people who have additional access requirements, but the barriers that society puts in their way. So for us, our building will be an extraordinarily accessible building. It already is, but it will be even more accessible in the future. And environmental sustainability, we are currently working on the building becoming carbon neutral by 2025. Now that's a really ambitious target for us, but we've got some funding in place to do some of the real basic work to allow that to happen. And what we would like to see is an extension of that work around environmental sustainability in the area as well. So, you know, from very basic things like the cleanliness, which we saw in the PowerPoint presentation earlier, the litter and the waste, to celebrating other organisations that are really kind of on the front foot when it comes to the work that they're doing around carbon neutral. We have a big problem with air quality in the area, and I just want to kind of flag that as something that I know everybody is really concerned about. I think for us that would make the visitor experience even better than it currently is. They love the character of the area. They don't always like the fact that that busy road that we're on, Commercial Street, where there's a lot of idling, of heavy traffic, right outside the primary school, which upsets us all very much. We need to address that, and I know that's in the thinking, but just to flag that. And for us, part of being in a very diverse, ethnically diverse area is understanding that as a white-led organisation, we are absolutely committed at the moment, particularly at the moment, to developing an anti-racism strategy. So that's the third tenet, the third pillar of how we will look at coming out of COVID-19, adjusting our plans, making sure we're achieving our accessibility targets, our sustainability targets, but also embedding anti-racism because we live in such a diverse area. It seems to us that that's really important of a way of making sure that we connect with local communities, as well as Catherine's lovely story about the welcoming nature of the area. That continues to be really important, and we have to look at that through the sort of 21st century lens.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Lots there. We've got lots of questions coming in, and I'm conscious of time, and I want to try and get to these questions. Just a couple of words, maybe just from Ian, on some of what Deborah's saying. There's obviously a lot of stuff there for the BID to pick up on and to try and move forward as you now do have around diversity, around carbon neutral, air quality. Is this all things that the BID can try and lead on? Are these all things in the business plan?
Absolutely, and I think these are all themes that reoccur. And I think there's an incredible diversity amongst the resident population. There's an incredible diversity amongst the businesses in the area that come from all over the world. Yeah, I think that's definitely a theme that runs through everything. But I think this issue of air quality is something the whole of London's probably realised in such incredible starkness. We've never seen such blue skies. We've never seen such clear air. Actually, no Londoner's probably seen that for 1,000 years. And actually, I don't think anyone wants to go back to the way it was. And I think there'll be a huge determination to once and for all clean up the air. And we know it's possible. We know how to do it. We just got to get on and do it.
Okay. Just going to some of the questions, and some of them are really more comments, but just really to give a shout out to Frank, who who agrees with Deborah around affordability, making sure that there is affordable. And someone else has commented that they've got friends who attend a community singing event right in the middle of centre of Aldgate, but they feel they can't afford the coffee and the food venues from the area because it's sort of unaffordable and is made to be sort of trendy. Going to come to Dan actually from a local authority perspective, and possibly even Helen. I mean, this is, it is a problem, and there is also a question here related to the fact that how do you influence enterprises who seem to have got help to locate in cheaper railway arch premises, possibly with grants, but they still go ahead and charge unaffordable prices? What can be done to encourage this sort of new way of thinking, I suppose, really? Is this something that you can influence through regeneration and planning? Dan, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, I'll try and have a go. I think in terms of the enterprises and the grants and premises and stuff, the councils can help with their economic renewal teams and grants to help businesses like that to get off the ground, etc. And we will both have different teams that work on those schemes and have different priorities. And obviously, this is a priority in terms of Tower Hamlets, and I'm sure we can help in certain circumstances with those. I think in terms of the prices of coffee, I think it's quite difficult in a capitalist society for a council to start influencing the price of coffee. But obviously, demand will influence the price of coffee in those areas. So if there are businesses who can sort of undercut those who are a bit more pricey, then hopefully they will flourish in that kind of environment. But I'm not sure it's a local authorities to do that.
A question, Dan, about the COVID-19 effect on the regeneration of Aldgate and whether this is going to slow things up. I mean, obviously you're trying to move things forward as quickly as possible, but in reality, is this slowing everything down slightly in terms of the ongoing regeneration?
I think there's been a bit of a pause while local authorities have tackled with some of the urgent issues that we've had to deal with in terms of our operations and some of those most vulnerable people in society with food banks, etc., and things like that. However, I speak for Tower Hamlets' point of view, we are coming out of that now. We're starting to come out into normal operations. A lot of the work on the background of this and other regeneration projects in the council has been ongoing. We haven't stopped. So those who've been able to work at home and carry on with this have been doing so. And I think one of the challenges for us now is how we engage with the community where we can't do those kind of face-to-face public consultation exercises that we perhaps done before in the past. But doesn't mean we can't. There's lots of people who can still access the internet and use those kind of tools to do it. But we have to think innovatively and creatively now about how we get that consultation going whilst trying to observe that 2-meter distancing and the social issues that go with that. But no, we are carrying on. We haven't stopped. We might have slowed down a little, but we're hoping to pick up pace now.
Okay, that's great.
I would also just add to that really quickly. Sorry, if you don't mind, but I think one of the things I would say about that in terms of the pace of the project is that yes, certain elements, including engagement, have had to slow down. But on the side of transportation and air quality, the city published a very ambitious transport strategy last year, thinking that it would take us 10 years to implement it. But now, actually, we've just passed, the planning committee just last month passed measures to change a large number of the roads in the city that actually moves that the implementation of that transport strategy forward by about 5 years in the space of a month. So, yes, there's a lot that we've had to slow down, but there's also something quite significant that we've pushed forward, which should have a really positive impact, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great. There's also a question here for you, Helen. It's more of a comment, but it's around the markets. Someone is saying that Lady Lane Market was launched in October 29. It's a great example of Tower Hamlets trying to regenerate Petticoat Lane Market and support local women makers to make their own businesses and sell projects. And really, it's just a shout out to say that obviously markets and local high street businesses is really key to ongoing regeneration. And I guess a plea to both both local authorities to recognise the importance of small businesses. And Ian, you want to come in here?
Yeah, and I think that was the great history of Petticoat Lane Market. That's what was so incredible about it, that most of the products for sale in the market were made in the buildings and the streets adjacent to it. And I think if we can get back to that, I think the market has a real niche in London. And I think people will once again be coming in coaches from Manchester down to visit the market again. Electric coaches.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we're really trying to help, I mean, the Lady Lane is a good example. So that's a Tower Hamlets led project that's looking at local women and providing ways that they can gain new business skills. So understand about accounting and get cleanliness certificates for food preparation, all these sorts of things. So it's really about business development. And I think the market is uniquely placed to do that because it's so incredibly cheap to start a business if you're using a market stall, and I think that our rates for the market traders are very low. So in terms of a startup business, it's an amazing environment to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Maybe Deborah, we can have an arts market. Maybe we can have a theme around arts. I just want to touch on this outdoor space element because there is something in the chat. We know many places on the continent, are looking to open up more outdoor spaces. I guess you might be a little bit limited. I don't know. You tell me. But are there plans to take things outside, particularly over the next few months when hopefully the sun will continue to shine? Jim, do you want to comment on that?
Well, only, and I'm sure Deborah will want to add stuff, but there's a couple of things. We, as I said, we developed a community garden with the help and support of Tower Hamlets Council, who's they're responsible for the front of it as well, and it should be a really amazing space for both the stuff that Deborah and the arts organisations would like to do, but generally community curated exhibitions, activities, and particularly with the social distancing. Actually, if we can make it a safe space, it's got chessboard, table tennis table, water fountain, opportunities for planting, lots of things there, and space for bikes, all kinds of things. So we want that to be an asset, and we want other developers, when they're thinking, and said this to the council and to others as well, to think actively now about building more green space and shared space into their developments, because it's so important. The only other thing I was going to say was just the kind of offer we put on there, as Deborah said, there's an arts admin cafe. We have some choices about, well, do you put a kind of high-end ice cream van on there, or actually do you find a community organisation that does things cheaply for people, to the cheap cup of coffee thing? And I think there's a big conversation to have about local community wealth building. There are small organisations and small suppliers who could do things cheaply if we invest in them and let them do that kind of thing, instead of looking to the big chains and things like that.
And many, presumably, people living locally that might want to start a new business, being entrepreneurial, and using local people to build that.
Catherine, just to add to that, there's been a lot of talk during the lockdown about cities reclaiming streets from traffic and actually creating open space again. Actually, at the heart of Aldgate, we have the new square, Aldgate Square, which is exactly that. If you visited there 2 years ago, that's a traffic gyratory. And the 60 subways have been removed, the traffic gyratory is gone, and now we have an urban square with trees and benches and an expensive coffee shop. But it's like, it's a total transformation of a piece of city by just reclaiming streets.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are sadly running out of time this afternoon. I think the message that's coming across is that obviously you do have everything in Aldgate. From the history, the big businesses, the small businesses, the outdoor spaces, the arts, the residents, the schools. You really do have it all. And I think what we're hearing is that there is a definite appetite and a desire to move all that forward. I just want to give the last microphone back to Ian just for the last few words, because this session has been brought to us thanks to the Aldgate Partnership, the TAP, the new bid. So just a final word from you about what people can expect from the bid in the coming months ahead.
I think it's been interesting. Great. Thank you so much for putting this together, Catherine. But I think what you see, it's a place of lots and lots of voices. It isn't single dominant voice. It's even a place where local authorities are collaborating together. And I would add to that, it's also the GLA collaborating, and it's also TfL collaborating. There are lots and lots of different people who have a stakeholder kind of position in this. And actually, I think that is the story for the whole of London. No one person's going to solve all the problems. No one organisation has that control. But it's actually the coming together of lots of different people with a shared sort of ambition, not to change the world, but just to change their little bit of the city. And if we can do that, it will be a sort of benchmark for everyone else, I think.
Jim, you had your hand raised. Does that mean no? Okay, no, that's fine. Well, I think that that sums it up really nicely. You have some great voices. We've heard from many of them today, and I'm sure there's much more dialogue and conversation that will be going on over the coming weeks and months. Definitely the word for this week has been about collaboration. That's the purpose of Real Estate Live, to get people to start talking, start collaborating. And I think it's been a theme that's come out of COVID-19 in the positive way, that has made people start to talk to neighbours more, start to collaborate amongst businesses more. So let's hope that we can move that forward over the next few months. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to hand back to Bonnie to just give us a closing remark. Hi, Bonnie.
Thanks, Catherine, and thank you again to all our panel and our audience. It's been a really great session, and it's made me very excited about going back to Aldgate. I think, echoing Helen, my mum's had enthusiastic reminiscences about Petticoat Lane, so looking forward to seeing that returning to former glory. And we also, just from a Real Estate Live point of view, we have one more session today on the other side of London, brought to you by West London Business, which is starting immediately. So if you'd like to register for that one, head on to the Real Estate Live website. And tomorrow we have a few more sessions to end the week. We're heading up to Scotland. We're talking to Waltham Forest. We've got a session about infrastructure investment, and we're considering the future of learning with Kingston University. So lots going on to end the week, and obviously on a Friday, something nice to tune into as you're winding down. So hopefully we'll see you in one of those sessions again soon. And thank you all again for joining us for this event.
Thank you.
Thank you.